In the lively village of Umwezi, where every gossip spread faster than wildfire and every palm wine tasted sweeter than the last, there lived Adaku, a woman as ambitious as she was unpredictable. If you asked her neighbors to describe her, they'd say she had the appetite of a lion and the cunning of a tortoise. Adaku had one simple motto in life: if money doesn't solve the problem, then the problem isn't mine. One fine market day, while Adaku was busy arguing over the price of dried fish, her friend Chisom stormed into the scene like a hen that just escaped a hungry hawk. Her wrapper was loose, her breathing was erratic, and her excitement was louder than the market bell. "Adaku! Adaku!" Chisom shouted, waving her arms like she was signaling a rescue boat. Adaku rolled her eyes, inspecting a particularly stubborn fish. "If you're not here to dash me money or invite me to a feast, save your voice. This fishmonger is already trying my patience." Chisom grabbed her by the arm and whispered dramatically, "The rich merchant, Namdi, has returned, and he's offering a bag of gold to any woman who can, entertain him for a single night." Adaku dropped the fish so fast that it bounced off the seller's head. "One night? A whole bag of gold? Is this gold laced with village rumors, or is he serious?" Chisom grinned, her voice lowering as if the yams and tomatoes were also eavesdropping. "Serious? Oh, they say he's lonely, and his kind of loneliness comes with benefits." Adaku's laughter rang out, startling a nearby goat. "Lonely, you say? And what exactly does this entertainment involve? Singing him lullabies or chasing away evil spirits with my wrapper?" Chisom shrugged. "Who cares? It's gold. Money can settle any trouble." By evening, Adaku had made up her mind. "Even a wise chicken doesn't reject grains thrown in its path," she reasoned, adjusting her wrapper in front of her tiny mirror. She tied her scarf tight like a warrior preparing for battle and made her way to Namdi's mansion under the glow of a full moon. The villagers murmured as she passed, "Adaku and her ways. One day she'll bite more than she can chew." But Adaku only smirked. "If my chewing annoys them, let them close their ears," she muttered. When she arrived at Namdi's door, she took a deep breath and knocked boldly. Whatever awaited her inside, she knew one thing. This was going to be a night the village would talk about for generations. The door creaked open, revealing Namdi, the rich merchant himself. He stood tall, dressed in an embroidered velvet robe that screamed wealth. His shiny shoes reflected the moonlight, and his cologne hit Adaku's nose like a slap of pepper soup, sharp and unforgettable. "Ah, the famous Adaku," Namdi said with a smile that could melt a block of palm oil. "Do come in." Adaku stepped inside, her eyes darting around the room. The floor was tiled. Tiles. In a village where most floors were the same color as the soil outside. The furniture looked imported, the type you'd see in the chief's palace during yam festivals. "Please sit," Namdi said, gesturing to a plush chair. Adaku sat carefully, unsure if the chair could recognize a village girl and eject her. "So," Namdi began, pouring a glass of wine for himself and one for Adaku. "You've heard my proposition." Adaku took the wine but didn't drink. Instead, she leaned forward, her expression as sharp as a hunter's spear. "Let's get straight to it, Namdi. What exactly does this unforgettable night entail?" Namdi chuckled, swirling his wine like a man with too much time and too much money. "It's simple. I need company, someone to talk to, laugh with, and remind me that life is more than gold and trade." Adaku raised an eyebrow. "Talk? Laugh? That's all? For a whole bag of gold?" "Of course," Namdi said smoothly, "unless you'd prefer to sweep the compound as a bonus." Adaku snorted. "Sweep K? I didn't wear my best wrapper to turn into your housemaid." She sipped the wine, finding it sweeter than she expected. "All right, Namdi, if all you need is my charming company, consider it done. But let me warn you, my laugh is expensive, no discount." Namdi leaned back, his eyes twinkling. "That's what I'm paying for, Adaku. Your laugh, your wit, and if you're feeling generous, maybe a dance or two." "Dance!" Adaku exclaimed, nearly choking on her wine. "You didn't mention that part before." Namdi shrugged. A man is like a horse. He needs to be entertained to stay strong. Adaku sighed dramatically, but secretly enjoyed the idea of being the center of attention. Fine, but if I dance, you'll add a little something to the gold bag. After all, I'm not your average village girl. As the evening wore on, Namdi and Adaku laughed, exchanged proverbs and shared tales of the village. Adaku even danced, though she made sure to look unimpressed with her own moves. When the night ended, Namdi handed her the promised bag of gold. You've earned it, Adaku, truly unforgettable. Adaku's eyes gleamed as she held the bag. Thank you, Namdi. And remember, a goat that walks into the lion's den must have a plan. She winked and left, her footsteps lighter than air. But as she walked home under the moonlight, the villagers were waiting, their questions sharper than needles. And Adaku, ever the clever one, had answers that would leave them scratching their heads for days. The rooster hadn't even cleared its throat for the morning crow when the village of Umwezi was already buzzing. By dawn, word had spread that Adaku, the girl with the tongue sharper than a razor, had returned home carrying a bag so heavy it could tilt the balance of the village's economy. At the market square, the women gathered, their voices blending with the clattering of pots and pans. Mama Ifeoma, the village's chief gossip, leaned in conspiratorially. Have you heard? Adaku spent the night at Namdi's mansion and left with gold, Mama Nkechi gasped, clutching her basket of plantains. Are you saying she sold her dignity for money? What is the world turning into? Mama Ifeoma smirked. A bird does not dance in the middle of the road for nothing. Either it hears a drum or sees the hunter. What do you think happened? Meanwhile, Adaku, oblivious to the chatter, was at home counting her gold with the precision of a yam seller. 1, 2, 3, she murmured, her eyes sparkling. Her younger brother, Chima, peeked into the room. Nye, where did you get all this money? Did you rob the gods? Adaku laughed. Rob? No, Chima. Your sister is now a businesswoman. I exchanged my laughter and wisdom for this. Chima frowned. Laughter? Wisdom? Since when did those pay better than farming? Since men like Namdi started looking for something more valuable than yams, Adaku said, tucking the gold into a calabash. Now run along or you'll scare my money away with your questions. But the questions were just beginning. By mid-morning, the village elders called a meeting at the Obi, the large hut where all important discussions were held. Elder Nwafa, whose voice always sounded like he was chewing on gravel, spoke first. This matter concerns us all, he began, stroking his greying beard. If our daughters start selling their companionship for gold, what will become of our traditions? Elder Okonkwo, always the peacekeeper, raised a hand. But let us not judge without knowing the full story. Perhaps Adaku can explain herself. As if summoned by the gods, Adaku appeared at the Obi's entrance, her wrapper tied confidently, her face glowing with defiance. Good morning, elders, she said, bowing slightly. Adaku, Elder Nwafa said sternly, the village is talking. What do you have to say for yourself? Adaku smiled, her voice steady. Elders, a palm tree does not grow tall without shaking the ground around it. Let them talk. I have done nothing wrong. I simply showed Namdi what wisdom looks like when it wears a wrapper. The elders exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or scold her. Adaku, as always, had a way of turning even the harshest judgments into applause. But as she walked away from the meeting, one thing was clear. Adaku's night with Namdi was only the beginning of a tale that would keep Umwezi talking for years. By the time the sun perched itself high above Umwezi, Adaku's name was on every tongue. The children sang songs about her, the men whispered in corners, and the women, well, they didn't whisper at all. At the village stream, where women gathered to fetch water and trade stories, Mama Nkechi stirred the pot of gossip with fervor. So, Adaku thinks she can fool the whole village? What wisdom is she selling that's worth a bag of gold? Mama Ifeoma scoffed, her hands firmly on her hips. When a hen crows like a cock, she invites the pot of soup. Let her enjoy her gold while it lasts. Trouble has a way of finding those who think they are smarter than the rest of us. Unbothered by the brewing storm, Adaku sat in her compound, humming a tune and polishing her newly acquired gold trinkets. Her younger brother, Chima, watched her, wide-eyed. "Ne, the village is talking about you. They say you bewitched Namdi." Adaku chuckled, shaking her head. "Let them talk, Chima. A talking drum never tires. It's the dancer who must keep moving." She stood and stretched, her confidence as radiant as the sun. Besides, if they knew what really happened, their jaws would drop like ripe mangoes. Just as she was basking in her cleverness, a figure appeared at the gate. It was Namdi, dressed in a crisp white tunic, his face clouded with concern. "Adaku, we need to talk," he said, stepping into the compound. Adaku raised an eyebrow. "Ah, Namdi, the man of the hour. To what do I owe this unexpected visit?" Namdi hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "Adaku, there's a problem. Since our derangement, word has reached my business rivals. They're accusing me of using my wealth to tarnish the village's values. My reputation is at stake." Adaku's smile faltered, but only slightly. "And what does that have to do with me? You paid for a service and I delivered. Is it my fault the village has loose tongues?" Namdi sighed, pacing. "It's not that simple. Some of the elders are saying I need to return the gold or face a council inquiry. If this continues, I might lose my trading license in the region." Adaku's eyes narrowed. "So what do you want from me, Namdi? To return the gold?" Namdi shook his head. "No, Adaku, I need your help. Convince the village that what we did was honorable, not shameful. You have a way with words. Use it." Adaku folded her arms, her mind racing. She knew this was a delicate situation, but she also knew one thing. A lion doesn't give up its prey just because the forest is noisy. With a sly grin, she said, "All right, Namdi, I'll help, but it'll cost you another bag of gold." Namdi's jaw dropped, but before he could protest, Adaku added, "Relax, my friend. A goat that grazes carefully avoids the hunter's trap. I'll make sure we both come out of this unscathed." And with that, Adaku began crafting a plan so clever, even the village's biggest gossips wouldn't see it coming. The next day, Adaku strolled into the market square with the confidence of a lioness, returning to her pride. The villagers were already gathered, buzzing like bees around a ripe fruit. At the center of it all stood Elder Nwafo, flanked by the other elders, their faces set in solemn judgment. "Adaku," Elder Nwafo began, his voice as heavy as a rainy season cloud, "you have been called here to explain your dealings with Namdi. The integrity of this village is at stake." Adaku curtsied with exaggerated politeness. "Elders of Umwezi, I greet you. But before I answer, let me ask, who among you has never made a trade in the market?" The crowd murmured, confused. Elder Okonkwo raised a hand to silence them. "Adaku, this is no time for riddles. Explain yourself." With a sly smile, Adaku began. "I will, elders. But first, let me remind you of a simple truth. The palm wine tapper drinks from the keg he labors for. Namdi and I engaged in an honest trade, my company for his gold. No deceit, no harm, just mutual respect." The crowd gasped. Mama Nkechi whispered to Mama Ifeoma, "This girl has the tongue of a snake." Elder Nwafa's brow furrowed. "And what kind of trade involves a woman spending the night with a man who is not her husband?" Adaku's eyes sparkled mischievously. "Ah, Elder, a monkey doesn't abandon a ripe banana for the chatter of the bush." "I stayed with Namdi, yes, but only to remind him of the joys of laughter and storytelling. Is it a crime to share wisdom with a lonely man?" Elder Chukwudi, who was known for his bluntness, barked, "Wisdom! Since when did wisdom cost a bag of gold? Adaku turned to face the crowd, her voice rising like a song. Since when, you ask? Since wisdom became rarer than a full basket of yams in the dry season. Namdi knew the value of what I offered, companionship, conversation, and a reminder that life is sweeter when shared. He paid me willingly, and I gave him what he asked for. Where is the shame in that? The crowd began to murmur again, this time with a mix of admiration and confusion. Adaku wasn't just defending herself, she was turning the tide of opinion. But what about the example you set for others? Elder Nwafor pressed. Adaku stepped closer, her tone softening. Elders, when the wind blows, we see the fowls behind, but we do not pluck its feathers. Let us not judge too harshly. If my actions inspire others, let them be inspired to value themselves, to know their worth, and to demand fairness in all dealings. The elders exchanged glances, their stern expressions softening. Even Elder Nwafor's stony face cracked into the faintest of smiles. As Adaku bowed and left the square, the crowd erupted into cheers and laughter. For once, the sharp tongues of the gossips were silenced, replaced by admiration for the girl who had turned a scandal into a lesson on self-worth. Namdi met her at the edge of the square, his relief evident. You've done it, Adaku. The village is on our side. Adaku patted the bag of gold in her hand. Of course, Namdi. The bird that knows the value of its feathers never flies too low. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have yams to buy and stories to tell. And with that, she left, her steps as light as the gold jingling in her hands. Adaku's fame, or infamy, depending on who you asked, spread like wildfire beyond Umuwezi. Traders passing through carried tales of the bold girl who outwitted a wealthy man and turned gossip into gold. The story reached neighboring villages, attracting curious visitors and, unfortunately, opportunists. One such visitor was Ezenwa, a cunning man with a reputation as slippery as an eel in palm oil. He was known far and wide for his ability to twist situations to his benefit, earning him the nickname Tortoise. Ezenwa arrived in Umuwezi under the guise of a trader selling exotic wares. He set up a small stall in the market, displaying shiny trinkets, colourful fabrics, and small jars filled with mysterious powders. It wasn't long before he began asking questions about Adaku. This Adaku, she must be very wise to outsmart a man like Namdi, he said to Mama Nkichi while handing her a beaded bracelet. Mama Nkichi, ever the gossip, leaned in. Wise? Some call it wisdom, others call it witchcraft, but one thing is certain. That girl has the tongue of a serpent and the luck of a cat with 9 lives. Ezenwa chuckled, stroking his chin. Interesting. Perhaps I should meet her. Wisdom like hers must be worth its weight in gold. Mama Nkechi's eyes twinkled mischievously. If you're looking for trouble, go ahead. But the lizard that jumps from the hieroko tree should not expect applause if it lands on its back. Adaku is not easily fooled. Undeterred, Ezenwa devised a plan. He would charm Adaku into thinking he was a wealthy trader, gain her trust, and then trick her into giving up some of her newfound riches. The next day, Ezenwa approached Adaku at her stall in the market, where she was selling roasted plantains with an air of nonchalance. Good afternoon, Adaku, he said, flashing a practiced smile. I've heard tales of your brilliance and couldn't resist the chance to meet you. I am Ezenwa, a humble trader with great admiration for clever minds. Adaku eyed him suspiciously, her lips curling into a sly smile. Ezenwa, the traveller with a silver tongue, what brings you to my humble stall? Surely a man like you has better places to be. Ezenwa laughed, his voice smooth as freshly tapped palm wine. The river does not flow backward unless it hides a secret. I believe we can be allies, Adaku. Your wisdom, my trade, we could achieve great things together. Adaku leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Allies, you say? The tortoise always hides its intentions beneath a cracked shell. What's your real game, Ezenwa? For the first time, Ezenwa faltered. He hadn't expected Adaku to see through him so quickly, but he recovered swiftly, his grin returning. My game, Adaku, is simple, profit, and if we play it well, there's enough for both of us. Adaku laughed, a sound as sharp as breaking cola nuts. We'll see, Ezenwa, but remember, a snake that slithers into a wise man's compound often leaves without its skin. The game was on, and Adaku was more than ready for it. Ezenwa was a man of many schemes, but Adaku had seen the likes of him before. She knew his type, smooth words, flashy wares, and hidden intentions. Still, she played along, intrigued by what this tortoise thought he could achieve. The following day, Ezenwa invited Adaku to his stall. It was laden with exotic goods, beaded necklaces that sparkled like dewdrops, fabrics as vibrant as the setting sun, and tiny jars labeled in foreign scripts. Adaku, he began with a grand gesture, I see a woman of your caliber deserves nothing but the finest. Take this, he said, holding up a shimmering bracelet, a token of my admiration, no strings attached. Adaku smirked. No strings, eh? The fly that perches on sweet soup knows it risks drowning. Tell me, Ezenwa, what do you truly want? Ezenwa feigned innocence, his eyes wide. Want? My dear Adaku, all I desire is friendship. Perhaps with time, partnership. Imagine what we could achieve together, your wit, my wares. Adaku slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, pretending to admire it. Partnership, you say? Interesting. But what kind of partner shows his goods without revealing their true price? Ezenwa chuckled nervously. You're sharp, Adaku, sharper than a freshly honed machete. All right, let me be honest. There's a trade caravan arriving soon, carrying treasures from distant lands. If we pool our resources, we can buy a share of the goods and split the profits. Adaku tilted her head, pretending to consider. And how much of my resources are we talking about? Ezenwa leaned closer, lowering his voice. Just a modest amount. 5 bags of cowries should suffice. Adaku's laughter rang out, drawing the attention of nearby traders. 5 bags of cowries for a trade I haven't seen with a man I just met? A goat that doesn't test the tether will find itself roasting on the fire. Nice try, Ezenwa. Ezenwa's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered. Adaku, I assure you, this is no trick. You're a woman of vision. Surely you can see the opportunity here? Adaku leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. All right, Ezenwa, let's make a deal. I'll give you 2 bags of cowries now, and you'll bring me the treasures to inspect before I pay the rest. But if you cheat me, the palm fronds you use to cover your tracks will become the firewood for your punishment. Ezenwa hesitated, but finally nodded, his mind already racing with plans to outwit her. As he walked away, Adaku watched him, a knowing smile on her lips. The hunter who thinks he's stalking the prey often finds himself in the lion's jaws. Let the games begin. Ezenwa returned a week later, his cart piled high with bundles wrapped in colourful cloth. He strutted into the market like a rooster entering a coop, his confidence unwavering. Adaku, he called out, his voice dripping with charm. The treasures have arrived as promised. Come, feast your eyes on riches beyond your wildest dreams. Adaku, sitting under the shade of an udala tree, fanned herself lazily. Ah, Ezenwa, you're back. I was beginning to think the river that flows too far forgets its source. Let's see what you've brought. Ezenwa set to work, unwrapping the bundles with theatrical flair. The first bundle revealed glittering trinkets that sparkled in the sunlight. The second held intricate carvings of animals, and the third contained colourful fabrics. The crowd gathered, oohing and aahing at the display. Adaku walked around the cart, inspecting the goods. She picked up a necklace, held it to the light, and then sniffed it. She did the same with a carving and a piece of fabric, her face unreadable. Ezenwa's grin widened. Well, Adaku, do you see now why I needed your partnership? Together we'll dominate the market. Adaku turned to him, her expression serious. Ezenwa, the moon does not hide behind a cloud forever. These treasures, they are not what they seem. The crowd gasped, and Ezenwa's confidence wavered. What do you mean? Adaku picked up the necklace and held it up for everyone to see. This gold is no more than painted brass. And this fabric? The dye is cheap. It will run faster than a frightened chicken in the rain. Ezenwa's face turned pale. Adaku, surely you jest. These are genuine tricks. Adaku interrupted, her voice rising. Did you think I wouldn't recognize counterfeit goods? The eagle that soars high sees the tiniest mouse below. Ezenwa, you've brought me nonsense and hope to fool me. The crowd, now murmuring angrily, turned on Ezenwa. Mama Nkechi shouted, Ezenwa, you fraud! How dare you bring fake goods to our market? Ezenwa stammered, his charm dissolving like salt in water. I didn't mean to... Adaku held up a hand, silencing him. Take your fake treasures and leave. But remember, the tree that hides a snake will one day feel its bite. Try to deceive me again, and you'll regret it. Ezenwa scrambled to gather his goods, his dignity in shreds. As he fled the market, the villagers erupted in laughter and applause. Adaku turned to the crowd, a triumphant smile on her face. Let this be a lesson to all. The monkey that jumps from tree to tree may one day fall, but the wise one watches and learns. With that, she returned to her udala tree, her legend growing with every passing moment. The story of Ezenwa's humiliation spread even faster than Adaku's earlier escapades. In neighboring villages, men chuckled over palm wine, and women whispered about her sharp tongue and sharper wit. Adaku, however, remained unbothered, tending to her daily business and enjoying the quiet thrill of being the topic of everyone's stories. But trouble, like a hungry goat, always finds a way into the compound. One day, a wealthy trader named Obiora arrived in Umwezi. He was a man of intimidating stature, his chest broad like the trunk of an Iroko tree. His robes were of the finest fabric, his sandals gleamed as if polished by the gods themselves, and his carriage bore the distinct scent of someone who believed he could buy the world. Obiora had heard of Adaku's antics and decided he would be the one to outsmart her. A mere girl? He scoffed. The lizard that boasts of scaling the tallest wall hasn't met the cat. I will teach her humility. He began by sending gifts to Adaku, a basket of yams, a bundle of expensive cloth, and even a live goat. Each came with a note written in flowing script, praising her intelligence and beauty. Adaku accepted the gifts but sent no reply. Instead, she laughed with her friends. This man must think I'm a bushrat chasing crumbs. The firewood fetched in a hurry often brings smoke but no flame. Let him try harder if he dares. Unwilling to back down, Obiora made a grand entrance into the village market one sunny afternoon. He strode to Adaku's stall, his entourage clearing the way as though he were royalty. Adaku, he said, his voice booming, I've heard of your wisdom and I've come to test it myself. Adaku looked up from her roasted plantains, her expression calm. Obiora, the man whose wealth speaks louder than his mouth. What brings you to my humble stall? Obiora grinned. I propose a challenge. If you win, I will give you a chest of gold coins. But if I win, you must work for me in my household for a year. The market fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause, eager to hear Adaku's reply. She leaned back, her eyes narrowing. A bold proposition, but the wise fisherman does not cast his net without knowing the depth of the water. What's the challenge? Obiora's grin widened. A riddle. Solve it, and the gold is yours. Fail, and you belong to me. The crowd gasped, but Adaku merely smiled. I accept, but remember, the bird that challenges the storm must have strong wings. What is your riddle? Obiora leaned closer, his voice low and dramatic. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? The market erupted in murmurs. Adaku, however, remained unflustered. She looked Obiora straight in the eye and said, "A human being. A baby crawls on all fours, an adult walks on two legs, and an elder uses a walking stick." The crowd cheered, their applause drowning out Obiora's stunned silence. Adaku smirked. "Obiora, the goat that challenges the lion has already accepted its fate. Bring me my gold." But Obiora wasn't done yet. "Wait, Adaku, I have one more riddle. If you solve it, I will double the gold. If not, you owe me." Adaku's eyes gleamed with mischief. "Bring it on." The market buzzed with excitement as Obiora prepared to deliver his second riddle. He adjusted his regal robes and cleared his throat dramatically, ensuring every ear was tuned to his words. "Adaku," he began, "answer this. The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I?" The crowd leaned forward in anticipation, their breaths held. Adaku, however, took her time. She turned her gaze to the sky as if consulting the spirits. Then she began pacing, her steps deliberate. She mused, tapping her chin. "The yam that is too big for the pot must be cut into pieces. Let me dissect this riddle of yours, Obiora." The crowd chuckled, and Obiora shifted uncomfortably. Adaku's voice carried as she spoke. "You say the more I take, the more I leave behind. It cannot be wealth, for the more I take, the less remains. It is not wisdom, for wisdom multiplies when shared." Obiora's grin faltered, and beads of sweat began to form on his brow. Adaku snapped her fingers, her face lighting up with realization. "Footsteps! The more steps you take, the more you leave behind." The market exploded in applause, the sound echoing off the nearby hills. Women ululated, children jumped with glee, and even the elders nodded in admiration. Obiora's face turned ashen. "Impossible! How could you—" Adaku raised a hand, silencing him. "The tortoise that thinks it's clever often finds itself trapped in its own shell. You challenged me and I won. Where is my gold, Obiora?" But Obiora wasn't ready to concede defeat. He raised his voice, addressing the crowd. "Adaku may have solved my riddles, but wealth is earned, not gifted. Let me offer a third challenge, one that will truly test her mettle." The crowd gasped, and all eyes turned to Adaku. She tilted her head, her expression calm but calculating. "Another challenge? Obiora, the child who drinks water with speed forgets the dangers of choking. Proceed, but be warned, you may choke on your pride." Obiora straightened, his confidence returning. "Fine. If you can sell this," he held up a single yam, "at the price of 10 yams by the end of today, I will double the chest of gold. But if you fail, you owe me 1 chest of your finest goods." The crowd erupted into murmurs. This was no easy task. Adaku studied the yam, her sharp mind already spinning ideas. Finally, she smiled. "Obiora, you have underestimated me. By the end of today, you'll wish you had stopped at riddles." The crowd roared, eagerly awaiting the showdown. Adaku knew this was not just a test of wit, but a battle of willpower, creativity, and strategy. As the sun blazed high in the sky, Adaku began her most daring game yet. Adaku stood under the blazing sun, her sharp eyes scanning the bustling market. The lone yam sat on her table, a symbol of Obiora's arrogance. The crowd watched with bated breath, whispering among themselves, eager to see how she would turn 1 yam into a fortune. She clapped her hands, drawing attention. "Villagers of Umuezi," she called, her voice ringing out like the village gong. "I present to you not just a yam, but the yam of prosperity. It's said that whoever eats this yam will attract wealth, health, and unending happiness." The crowd murmured in intrigue, and a few stepped closer. Adaku raised her hand dramatically. "But this yam is not for the faint-hearted. Its powers are rare, and so its value cannot be measured in ordinary terms. I will auction it to the wisest among you who knows the true worth of prosperity." The crowd buzzed with excitement, and hands began shooting up. "I'll pay 2 yams worth," shouted Mama Nkechi. 3 yams worth, countered a fisherman. Adaku smiled, her voice calm but commanding. "Let us not insult the yam's worth. This is no ordinary food. It is a bridge to abundance." The bidding war intensified, 5, 6, 7 yams worth, until finally, Eldon Woke, known for his deep pockets and love for rare items, stepped forward. 10 yams worth, he declared, his voice booming. Adaku clapped her hands again, her face glowing. Sold to Eldon Woke, a man of wisdom and foresight. The crowd erupted in cheers as Adaku collected the payment. She handed the yam to Eldon Woke, who held it high like a trophy. "May the blessings of this yam enrich your household," she said, bowing theatrically. Obiora, standing at the edge of the crowd, looked on in disbelief. His carefully crafted challenge had crumbled like dry cassava. Adaku turned to him, her voice dripping with victory. "Obiora, the dog that barks at the moon only tires itself out. You underestimated me, and now your pride has been your undoing." The trader sighed heavily and gestured to his guards to bring the chests of gold. "You've won, Adaku. I concede defeat. But tell me, how did you think of such a clever plan?" Adaku smiled mischievously. "Obiora, the monkey does not reveal all its tricks to the hunter. Some things are better left a mystery." The villagers cheered as the chests were placed before her. Adaku, now richer than ever, waved to the crowd and called out, "Let this be a lesson. The snail may be slow, but it always carries its house. Patience and wit will always triumph." With that, she left the market, her name etched forever in the annals of Umuezi's legends. As for Obiora, he departed quietly, vowing never to cross paths with Adaku again. And so Adaku lived on, celebrated as the woman who turned one yam into a legacy. Months after Adaku's stunning victory, her tale became the stuff of legends, told under moonlit skies and around crackling fires. Children sang songs of her cleverness, and elders nodded knowingly whenever her name was mentioned. The market, once just a place for trading goods, now bore the weight of her story, a reminder that wit, courage, and self-belief could outshine even the mightiest wealth. Adaku, now wealthy beyond measure, didn't let her newfound riches change her. She continued to live simply, though her home was a little grander and her meals a little richer. She was often seen helping others, whether it was giving market women advice on pricing their goods or teaching young girls the power of using their minds. One day she stood in the center of the market, addressing the curious crowd. "Let me tell you something," she began, her voice calm but commanding. "The world will try to measure you by what you own, but remember this. A goat does not become a lion simply by growing a mane. It is your wit, your values, and your resilience that make you strong." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And never forget, the person who sharpens their axe is the one who fells the Iroko tree. Preparation and patience are the keys to victory." The crowd applauded, and Adaku smiled, raising her hand for silence. "And now, my people, I leave you with one last request. If this story has made you laugh, think, or even shake your head in disbelief, do not let it stop here. Share it with others. Let them learn the lessons of Adaku and Obiora. And if you're watching this story online, don't forget to subscribe to our channel at Afro Native Tales and share this tale far and wide. With that, Adaku picked up her basket and walked away, leaving behind a legacy that would echo for generations. Lesson of the story: never underestimate the power of intelligence and wit. Adaku showed us that the mind is the most valuable tool, capable of conquering even the wealthiest adversary. Pride comes before a fall. Obiora's arrogance blinded him to the possibility of defeat, proving that humility is an important virtue. True wealth lies in self-respect and integrity. Adaku used her intelligence not just for gain, but to uplift others, making her legacy one of empowerment. Preparation and strategy lead to success. Adaku's ability to think ahead and remain calm under pressure ensured her victories.